We must accept the terrifying reality that IT didn't just fly by US by accident. IT scanned US, IT refueled, and now IT is taking that data back to its creators.
Good evening to everyone joining us from around the globe. The interstellar object known as 3I Atlas is currently speeding away from Earth. Joining me to discuss this is the head of the Galileo Project, Dr. Avi Loeb. Dr. Loeb, let us begin with the most recent images captured by the Hubble Space Telescope just 48 hours ago. These images reveal a symmetrical double jet structure and a strange anti-tail pointing directly toward the Sun, which appears to wobble with a precise period of 7 hours and 45 minutes. Can you explain to our audience why this specific motion and orientation are causing such a stir within the scientific community?
The images we are seeing from the telescope are truly unprecedented. We usually expect cometary tails to point away from the Sun. The solar wind pushes gas and dust away from the star. However, this object displays a prominent jet pointing directly sunward. This phenomenon is technically called an anti-tail in cometary physics terms. But a natural anti-tail is typically a projection effect of viewing geometry. What we are witnessing here is something fundamentally different and physically robust. The material is being ejected with high velocity toward the host star. IT suggests an active mechanism rather than simple passive ice sublimation. This defies the standard model for dirty snowballs entering our system. The periodicity of the wobble is the second major red flag. Natural comets usually tumble chaotically as they heat up and outgas. This object is rotating with a mechanical precision of nearly 8 hours. The wobble we observe looks less like random tumbling and more like precession. IT resembles the behavior of a spinning top maintaining its stability. If you were designing a craft, you would stabilize IT exactly thus. This ensures that your instruments or shields remain facing the correct direction. We must consider the possibility that this is a gyroscopic stabilization. Nature rarely produces such rhythmic precision in a disintegrating body of ice. We have observed this object essentially fighting against the solar wind pressure. The jet pointing toward the Sun might act as a stabilizing thruster. This would allow the object to maintain its trajectory against solar radiation pressure. When a natural comet outgasses, the force is usually distributed unevenly. This causes the comet to spin up wildly and often break apart. 3I חלקי Atlas has maintained its structural integrity despite these intense internal forces. The jet's intensity seems to modulate in time with the rotation. This indicates a coupling between the object's orientation and its activity. IT is behaving like a machine reacting to its immediate environment. The symmetry of the double jet structure is also highly suspicious. In nature, outgassing vents are random holes on a comet surface. Here we see two distinct streams emerging from opposite sides of the body. This configuration maximizes stability and prevents unwanted alterations to the orbital path. IT looks remarkably like the reaction control system on our own spacecraft. If this were a natural rock, such symmetry would be a miracle. We cannot calculate the odds of this happening by pure chance alone. IT forces us to look beyond the geological explanation for this event. Let us dig deeper into the physics of this SV cycle. A loose pile of rubble would fly apart at this spin rate. The centripetal force would overcome the weak gravity holding the rocks together. This tells us the object is a solid, monolithic block of material. IT has significant internal tensile strength, unlike any asteroid we have studied. The wobble suggests IT is a rigid body undergoing forced precession. This happens when a spinning object is subjected to an external torque. The solar pressure provides the torque, and the object corrects itself. The NTTL might not be dust or ice crystals at all. We have not detected the usual spectral lines for water or carbon dioxide. It is possible we are seeing plasma exhaust or ion drive emissions. If this is propulsion, IT explains the sunward direction of the flow. You fire your engines toward the object you wish to move away from. In this case, IT is pushing against the gravity of the sun. This would explain the anomalous orbital parameters we will discuss later on. We are looking at a controlled burn rather than a melting rock. This brings us to the implication of the object's survival. If IT were shedding mass this violently, IT should have faded. Yet, the object remains bright and consistent in its visual magnitude. This means the jets are very focused and efficient in expelling mass. A natural process is messy, wasteful, and spreads debris in all directions. 3 חלקי Atlas is conserving its mass while producing a very specific directional force. IT is operating with an efficiency that implies purposeful design or engineering. We are essentially watching a departure maneuver played out on a cosmic scale. Finally, we must address the silence of the mainstream astronomical community. Many colleagues are trying to fit these observations into standard cometary models. They invent complex scenarios involving exotic ices and unique, distinct rotation poles. But Occam's razor suggests we should choose the solution with fewest assumptions. A rigid, artificial probe stabilizing itself is a simpler explanation than a miracle comet. The data is screaming at us to open our eyes to reality. We must stop dismissing anomalies just because they make us feel uncomfortable. This wobble is the heartbeat of something that is very much alive.
Reports released this week indicate that 3I Atlas is actually 20 times smaller than astronomers originally predicted, with a radius of only 260 to 370 meters, yet it survived a fiery close approach to the Sun. How is it possible for an object this small to remain intact under such intense heat and gravitational pressure when larger comets, like C2024S1 last year, completely disintegrated?
The revision of the size estimates is a crucial piece of evidence. We initially thought the object was much larger due to its brightness. However, the new data confirms it is a relatively compact object. A radius of roughly 300 meters is incredibly small for survival. Usually, a comet of this size is destroyed by the popcorn effect. The internal water turns to steam and explodes the rock from within. That did not happen here, which tells us something about its composition. IT suggests the object is not made of ice or loose rocks. We witnessed the destruction of Comet חלקי 2024 just last year. That object was significantly larger and yet it turned into a cloud of dust. The sun's tidal forces rip these loose aggregations of matter apart effortlessly. 3 חלקי Atlas passed even closer to the sun and emerged completely unscathed. This implies a material strength that exceeds that of iron or stone. We are likely looking at a body made of an artificial alloy. IT must be strong enough to resist the immense tidal stretching forces. Nature does not produce space rocks with this degree of tensile strength. The brightness of the object combined with its small size is telling. IT implies that the surface has an extremely high albedo or reflectivity. IT is reflecting sunlight much more efficiently than a dark, Sierre-Bionner-Ridge comet. This is consistent with the hypothesis of a metallic or polished surface. If IT were a dark rock, IT would need to be huge. Since IT is small, IT must be shiny like a mirror. This brings to mind the artificial aesthetic of a functional device. Let us consider the heat load IT experienced at its closest approach. The surface temperature would have reached thousands of degrees during the flyby. A natural icy body would have sublimated a vast percentage of its mass. Yet, we see an massive coma or cloud surrounding the central nucleus. This indicates the presence of a heat shield or a JWST hull. Such a shield would protect the internal instruments from the solar fire. It is exactly how we design our own solar probes like Parker. The density of this object must be extraordinary to maintain such a cohesive orbit. If IT were porous, the solar wind would have altered its path more. Its inertia suggests IT is a heavy, dense object, perhaps made of tungsten. A dense object of this size is a perfect package for a probe. IT minimizes the cell's N while maximizing the volume for internal hardware storage. IT is the efficient design one would expect from an interstellar surveyor. We are seeing form-following function in the vacuum of deep space. We must also discuss the geometry of the object based on light curves. IT is likely flat or sigil-3D, similar to the first visitor, Oumuamua. However, 3 חלקי Atlas seems to be even more structurally sound than its predecessor. The lack of fragmentation implies IT is a single, solid piece. There were no chunks falling off as IT swung past the sun. This consistency is the hallmark of a manufactured object, not a geological one. IT is built to endure the harsh environment of interstellar travel. The survival bias argument used by skeptics does not apply in this case. They say we only see the ones that survive, which is true. But the statistics of a small rock surviving this trajectory are infinitesimal. IT is like seeing a snowflake survive inside a blast furnace. You would assume the snowflake is actually made of white titanium. That is the conclusion we must draw about the hull of 3 חלקי Atlas. IT is constructed from materials that we might not even possess yet. To conclude this point, the size discrepancy is a smoking gun. IT eliminates the possibility of IT being a typical dirty snowball comet. We are tracking a solid, reflective, and JWST object of modest dimensions. IT behaves exactly like a technological package sent to gather data. The universe is vast, and rocks are common, but this is unique. We must accept that this visitor is tougher than anything nature builds. IT is a diamond in the rough, or perhaps a steel ship.
There has been speculation in recent reports, particularly from researcher Burns, suggesting a correlation between the object's trajectory and specific active regions of the Sun. Some data indicates that 3I Atlas actually dipped into the Sun's coronal influence and accelerated in a way that gravity alone cannot explain. Could this object have been using the Sun for something other than just a gravitational slingshot, perhaps to refuel or harvest energy?
The interaction with the Sun is indeed the most fascinating aspect of this encounter. We tracked the object as IT passed through the solar corona's outer layers. The trajectory data shows a clear and non-girilling acceleration as IT departed the star. This means something pushed IT faster than gravity alone could have done. Usually, this is caused by outgassing, like a rocket engine. But as we discussed, there was very little mass lost during the transit. This leaves us with the possibility of electromagnetic interaction or energy harvesting. The correlation with active solar regions mentioned by Burns is statistically significant. The object seemed to target a region of high magnetic activity. This is where the solar energy density is at its absolute peak. If you were a technological civilization, this is where you would go. You would use these regions to recharge your batteries or capacitors. IT is similar to how a surfer catches the biggest wave. The object aligned itself to maximize exposure to these intense fields. We must consider the concept of a magnetic sail or a collection scoop. A sufficiently advanced probe could extract plasma directly from the solar wind. This plasma could be used as propellant for the journey to the next star. The jets we see might be the exhaust from this extraction process. IT is a very efficient way to travel without carrying heavy fuel. You simply harvest what you need from the stars you visit. This turns the Sun into a cosmic gas station for the probe. The maneuver performed at perihelion looks suspiciously like a powered gravity assist. In astronautics, we fire engines at the closest approach to maximize speed. This is known as the Oberth effect, and DIT is highly effective. 3i חלקי Atlas exhibited an extra boost exactly at this critical moment. Nature does not understand orbital mechanics, but this object seemingly does. IT utilized the sun's gravity well to fling itself outward with added velocity. IT is the signature of a calculated navigation event. Let us explore the idea of electromagnetic recharging in more detail. The potential difference across the solar corona is enormous and powerful. A probe could deploy a tethered TO tap into this voltage. This would provide enough energy TO power transmitters for thousands of years. The wobble we see could be the result of deploying such tethers. The physical interaction with the magnetic field lines would induce a torque. This fits the data of the Savigny-Joule precession cycle perfectly. We also noticed that the object's color spectrum shifted slightly during the encounter. This could indicate a change in surface properties due to energy absorption. Perhaps the skin of the object is a photovoltaic collector of high efficiency. IT absorbed the intense UV and X-ray radiation TO store for the dark journey. We do not have materials that can withstand that, but they might. IT is a logical strategy for a longitudinal and interstellar voyage. The fact that IT is leaving with more energy than IT arrived is key. IT stole momentum and likely electromagnetic energy from our host star. This is a parasitic or symbiotic interaction, depending on how you view IT. IT treats the sun not as a hazard, but as a resource. This is a mindset of a spacefaring intelligence, not a lifeless rock. We do exactly the same thing with our Voyager and Cassini probes. Ultimately, the solar dip suggests a mission profile of refuel and report. IT came in, gathered energy and data, and is now boosting out. The NONG revealing acceleration is the footprint of its propulsion or harvesting system. We are watching a ship top up its tanks before the long dark. It is a humbling realization that we are merely a pit stop. The sun is just a lighthouse and a battery for them. And they know exactly how to use IT.
Now that the object is officially leaving our solar system and is scheduled to cross the heliopause by 2026, we must ask about its final destination. Is 3i Atlas drifting randomly into the void, or does its departure trajectory look calculated, perhaps pointing towards a specific star system or region of the galaxy?
The trajectory of this object is unequivocally hyperbolic and IT will never return. We have mapped its path with extreme precision using the Global Telescope network. IT is exiting on system AT a speed that defies natural gravitational capture. What strikes me as most profound is the specific vector of its departure. IT is not heading into the empty void found above the galactic disk. Instead, IT is aligning itself perfectly with the dense galactic plane of the Milky Way. This is the region where the vast majority of stars and potential planets reside. If you were a travel agent, this is exactly the route you would book. We have calculated that its vector points towards the Cygnus and Lyra constellations. This represents a very rich field of stars that the Kepler telescope once monitored. IT is moving if IT has a specific waypoint or destination in mind. A random rock ejected from a planetary collision would fly off in any direction. But 3i חלקי Atlas is heading toward the most populated downtown area of our galaxy. This reinforces the hypothesis that IT is moving between specific nodes in a network. IT is behaving like a courier moving from one mailbox to the next one. Another anomaly is the lack of tumbling as IT moves away from US. Usually, a departing comet will spin chaotically due to the forces IT just experienced. This object, however, maintains a steady attitude relative to the background field of stars. IT seems to be locked onto navigational guide star to maintain its course. This stability is essential if you are trying to transmit a signal back home. You cannot point a JJG antenna if your spacecraft is spinning out of control. The steadiness suggests an active attitude control system IS still functioning on board. If this object IS indeed a probe, its mission here IS likely complete. IT performed a close flyby of the habitable zone and D scanned the Earth's atmosphere. IT used the Sun TO gain speed and D change its course for the next leg. We are essentially watching a tourist who has finished taking photos and D IS leaving. The departure represents the end of the data collection phase of its mission profile. We should assume that IT has cataloged everything from our radio waves to our oxygen levels. The speed AT which IT is leaving IS also maintained with suspicious consistency. IT is not decelerating as much as we would expect from solar gravity alone. This implies a continuous LOWT JWST propulsion or a reduction in drag due to orientation. IT is cruising out of the system with the confidence of a powered vessel. We are witnessing a technological signature of a craft maintaining a cruise velocity. IT is eager to reach the interstellar medium where ITCN travel unimpeded. We must consider the terrifying possibility that IT is transmitting data right now. As IT aligns with its destination, IT could be beaming a focused signal. The wobble we discussed earlier might be the scanning motion of a transmitter. If IT found life here, that information is contained in a packet of data. We do not have the receivers to intercept JWST laser communication signal. We are deaf to the report IT is filing about our civilization today. The timeline for its journey to the next star is immense by human standards. IT will take thousands of years to reach the vicinity of another star system. However, for an artificial intelligence or a dormant machine, time is completely irrelevant. They operate on cosmic timescales where 10,000 years is merely a blinking eye. We must stop thinking in terms of human lifespans when analyzing interstellar exploration. This is a long-term survey project that has likely been running for billions of years. Ultimately, the departure vector tells us that we are not special or unique. We are simply one stop on a very long and decalculated bus route. The object came, IT saw, and now IT is moving to the next target. We are left with the realization that the galaxy is connected by these trajectories. 3 חלקי Atlas is a physical proof that the highway between stars is currently active. We are just standing on the side of the road watching traffic pass.
Dr. Loeb, you have analyzed the data from the Galileo Project sensors and seen the evidence regarding the wobbling jets, the material strength, and the acceleration. I need to ask you directly, are you ready to state on the record that 3I Atlas is an extraterrestrial spacecraft, or is there still room for doubt?
We must approach this question with the utmost scientific humility and says today. The history of science is full of discoveries that were initially rejected as impossible. We used to believe the Earth was the center of the entire physical universe. Admitting that we are not the only intelligent civilization is the next logical step. I am not afraid to follow the evidence wherever IT may lead us. The data we have collected on 3 חלקי Atlas is simply incompatible with natural models. To cling to a natural explanation now requires more faith than accepting the artificial one. We have reviewed the anomalies, the impossible strength, the symmetrical jets, and the orbital shift. Any single one of these could perhaps be explained away as a rare coincidence. But seeing them all present in a single object is statistically zero. IT is like finding a watch on the beach and saying the waves built IT. The complex integration of these features points to intelligent design and engineering intent. We are seeing a machine that was built to survive and navigate space. I am reminded of the famous principle articulated by the character Sherlock Holmes. He stated that when you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth. We have eliminated the dirty snowball theory because the object did not disintegrate. We have eliminated the hydrogen iceberg theory because we see no spectral evidence. What remains, however improbable it seems to conservative astronomers, ISAN artificial origin. We are looking at genocide from a civilization other than our own. People ask if this is an invasion, but that is a human projection. I view this object as likely a defunct or autonomous probe passing through. We are like ants on a sidewalk looking at a car driving past. The driver of the car does not care about the politics of the ants. This object is indifferent to OUS. IT is simply executing its ancient programming. IT is a piece of space trash or a sensor from a grand experiment. The resistance to all this idea stems from a psychological need for human supremacy. We want to all believe we are the smartest beings in the Milky Way galaxy. But JWST xelkei Atlas is a mirror that shows us our true place in the cosmos. IT represents a technology that is far superior to anything we see and currently build. Recognizing this is not a defeat for humanity, but a WQQ call. We are the new kids on the cosmic block, and we are not alone. This event proves the critical need for projects like the Galileo Project. We rely too much on military sensors that classify data for national security reasons. We need dedicated, OQN sources scientific observatories scanning the sky for these specific signatures. If we had better cameras, we might have seen the rivets on the hull. We missed the fine details because we were not looking with the right eyes. We must build the infrastructure to catch the next visitor that enters our yard. I am convinced that JWST xelkei Atlas is just one of many such objects. The solar system is likely full of interstellar debris and defunctioning alien devices. We have been blind to them because we assumed they were just asteroids or comets. Now that we know what to look for, we will find many more. This is the beginning of a new era in astronomy and human history. The alien label is no longer science fiction. IT is a scientific category. To answer your question directly, yes, I believe this is an artificial craft. The evidence for a natural origin has crumbled under the weight of the data. We have been visited by a device manufactured by an extraterrestrial intelligence. The universe is teeming with life, and we have just made contact with its hardware. The silence of the stars has finally been broken by the roar of an engine.